Good afternoon, everybody. This is Stephen Ampersand with Turn the Tassel Consulting Group, turnthetasselconsulting.com, at Turn the Tassel on Facebook. It's been a while since I've been on, and so I'm going to thank everybody for your patience. I did just recently come through a COVID-19 battle, and I'm very thankful to so many for all the prayers and support as my entire family contracted the disease, but I had it the worst, and it got pretty bleak there for a while. So I'm grateful to be back, grateful to be healthy, and glad to be back doing what I love, which is helping you and the people you love get to and through college earlier on time with minimum to no debt. And so I want to talk today about a topic that doesn't get touched on very much, but I think will become more prominent as we move into the next 5 to 10 years, particularly in the wake of the pandemic and some of the choices that families have made to keep their kids moving forward with their education dealing with the pandemic. So I want to talk to you today about homeschooling and how to best set our homeschool students up for success as it relates to college. And so to do that, I want to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to give a scenario that homeschool parents can relate to right off the bat, so that we can talk through that and understand sort of what dilemmas, what positives, but what dilemmas also face students who do homeschooling as it relates to college, so we can really get a plan together, which is what we do at Turn the Tassel. We'll get a plan together to help set your student up for success as it relates to college. So I want you to take a moment and think about a homeschool parent and homeschool student situation. What we see is that, first of all, homeschooling is happening all over the country, and it's happening at a pretty large scale when you think about how many students state to state are participating. The numbers are varying from one place to the next, and it's hard to track because they're not in a formalized system. But there are lots of co-ops and organizations for homeschoolers that come together and really work together to give their children the best experience they can from an educational standpoint, but also help them to get engaged and involved with extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities, sports, and those kinds of things, so that they have their relationships along with their homeschooling. What we find with homeschool students are two key things. One, they tend to be academically well prepared. And that's one of the great positives of homeschooling. They do exceptionally well on standardized tests from SAT to ACT. They usually graduate high school early. They usually graduate early because, for lack of a better way of saying it, they're self-paced. And so, they're working, one-to-one ratio with their parent or other cooperative circumstance, so that they have a great student to the instructor ratio that helps them to move forward more quickly. So these are positive things. What happens, though, is as it relates to college, it's not uncommon, for example, for a homeschool student to graduate high school as young as 16 years old, some even younger. I've, in my career in higher education, I've dealt with homeschool students who graduated high school at the age of 14. So what do you do with a student like that, right? They've got high aptitude. They don't need remediation as it relates to college, but they're young. Do you really want a 14-year-old on a 4-year campus college environment in freshman dorms with 18 and 19-year-olds, 17, 18, 19-year-olds? That potentially is a recipe for disaster. So what happens often is these homeschool students will graduate, and then they'll take a gap year or gap years where they don't do anything, so that they can get a little bit older before they go to college. But see, here's the problem with that. Colleges' profiles and their rankings and everything else are predicated upon full-time, first-time status. In other words, they're looking to see, from a ranking standpoint, what gets reported federally and everything else are the students who are first-time students that are full-time students. And when you graduate from high school, if you take a gap year or gap years, you don't qualify in that next year's first time full time. And when you eventually go to school, you don't qualify at that time because you're so many years removed from your high school graduation. So they fall off the reporting map, and that's a challenge for families because it's the first time full-time student that gets all the aid offers from the institution, institutional money. They're trying to court you to come there if you have high GPA, high SAT, because you count against their profile and raise their profile if you come with those scores right out of high school. But if you take the gap year, those scores, none of that counts. So they have no incentive to really give you money to go to school. And so that's a dilemma that homeschool students face. They're very young, so if you sent them right away, they're really not going to be set up emotionally and maturity-wise to succeed on a college campus, and lots of problems can happen. But if you wait and you do the gap year or gap years thing, you lose out on the institutional aid and ultimately you pay more for college. So what's the answer? I'm glad you asked. So one of the things that I work with people to do is to identify programs with community colleges that once that homeschool student has graduated, now they can enroll at the local community college who has what are called articulation agreements, essentially they're transfer agreements with four-year partner institutions, traditional four-year partner institutions that have campuses, that have dorms, everything else. And what we do is we help them to earn their associate degree in a particular discipline in partnership with that four-year partner that college university, that community college is connected to. Why? Because at 14, 15, they are still living at home, which is the reality of a homeschool student. They're at home already, so there's no pressure for them to be living on a dorm, that kind of thing. They're already home. They're attending their local community college. They come right into college level because their aptitude is very high. The faculty love them because they know their stuff and work very well with them. They tend to be more mature as well and well-grounded. So they do very well in the community college. And when they earn that associate degree in 2 years, they then have automatic acceptance into the remaining the 2 years, if you will, of that four-year partner. Okay? And so once they have that connection, now they transfer all of their associate degree credits. That transfers from that community college directly into apples for apples to that four-year degree program. And see, here's the key. The key is they don't show up to that 4 year as juniors, because essentially you'd have the same problem, right? You'd now have a young person, 17 years old, let's say, who is now a junior credit-wise in college. They're in upperclassmen dorms. That's just as problematic as having a 14-year-old in the freshman dorms, right? So what we do is we look for those programs that have the dual enrollment and that partnership with the community college. But we stress and emphasize something called freshmen with advanced standing. That's what you're looking for. Freshmen with advanced standing. Why? Because again, they're coming into that college at 4 year as technically a first-time full-time student with advanced standing because they have credits that are coming with. And what that does is that opens up that formerly homeschooled student, now community college graduate, to be a first-time full-time student at the 4 year, which lets them count against their profile for reporting purposes, which means they will court them similarly from a financial standpoint, so you don't lose out on those monies. And best of all, a freshman with advanced standing still goes into the freshman dorms. So now they're 17, 18 years old, and they're in the freshman dorms with other 17 and 18-year-olds. It's age appropriate. They do their first semester at least, sometimes the first full year, um, as a freshman with advanced standing, and then they convert to whatever class level their credits qualify them for, either junior or senior, the following year. And that's how it's done, folks. That's how you set up a homeschool student for success, so that you can take advantage of the opportunity of homeschooling and not miss out on the good institutional aid that colleges can offer you if you're considered first-time, full-time. You can get them and keep them going, motivated. They don't have to take 2 or 3 years off. They can go right into that community college and still be at home under your care and supervision, and advancing and moving forward with their degree. Not to mention, the community college, from a cost standpoint, is pennies on the dollar as compared to a traditional four-year school. And then through the existing articulation agreements, the existing transfer agreements that these community colleges have with their four-year partners, they've got guaranteed acceptance and admittance into the final 2 years of their program of study for their baccalaureate degree. And they can come as first-time, full-time students, which means it's a win for everybody. For more questions about that, as always, you can contact me directly. You can reach out to me on Facebook, at Turn the Tassel on Facebook. You can go to our website, contact us, turnthetasselconsulting.com, and I'm happy to help guide you through that. Again, thank you so much for your time. I'm Stephen Ampersand. This is Turn the Tassel Consulting Group, turnthetasselconsulting.com.